There we go. Ah. Yep. Oh, I have to redo that. SSH AskPass is a completely different thing. So I've got the shell. That's not the one I was just using. That's the one I was just using. So if I SSH into Lofen now, it's prompting me for a passphrase. What's a passphrase? A passphrase is basically a string of characters that you decide that's encrypting your ID RSA file, so that if someone were to get a hold of your data, they would have to actually brute force the password on your SSH file, which I would point out under the default conditions is not impossible or nor even very difficult. And that's a whole topic for another time though, but it provides some level of security. So if I were to type in my passphrase without typing it into a window where you can see it,
So here's a question on the SSH agent. Can SSH agent be started automatically on your login and use your login credentials?
yeah, there's a PAM module for that.
Okay.
It has some security vulnerabilities. I used to use it. So anyway, I'm not going to bother entering it properly because I just don't want to. So what happens now when I'm in a normal shell is pardon my scrolling because I don't have a mouse wheel. Oh, it is using the ECDSA key. That's not good. I should probably fix that.
It's P521, you're okay.
So we offer it actually talks to the SSH agent, and the SSH agent gives it my unencrypted RSA or ECDSA keys, and then it offers them to them, which is all well and good. So forward agent is what we're actually talking about right now. When you say forward agent, yes. What happens is over the SSH tunnel, once you're established there, it creates a socket as if the SSH agent is running on the far side. So not only when I SSH in here, it's not an agent process, is it? No. But there is an SSH auth socket, which is also in temp. And that auth socket is what it communicates with to what SSH asks for to get my private key. So that means if once I'm in this computer, I can SSH into another computer without having to type in to have any actual authentication tokens on this machine. So what happens?
So for your second SSH connection, it is using the key on your primary first machine?
Yep, it's actually communicating all the way back to the agent. So if I kill the agent,
So you didn't have to copy your private key.
yep. But root on this computer can get the private key. So this leads us to why I don't set forward agent up here. So if I set forward agent up here, every machine that I SSH into would have access to my private key. And that's all well and good on the machines that you can trust root, or depending on how much you can trust.
So if you set forward agent, yes, up there, GitHub, you get your private key.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm pretty sure for GitHub I don't forward agent. Let's check, because I just added that. Oh, no, I only added 2 rules for that, and I already deleted it. So yeah, so for a while this was a hosting provider we used at a previous job, so actually I don't trust them anymore. My router I actually don't trust as much, so I don't forward agent to there. Lofen, Jofen, I trust. Sin, I also trust. I actually trust Sin slightly more than the other 2 because this is hosted by a friend of mine on a physical machine in a safe, it's a relatively safe location. So, my local things on my local network, which is .god, I trust. Oh, by the way, I should help with some of these names. I actually have a friend that speaks Bokmål, or writes Bokmål and speaks Norwegian. And so I've got pronunciations for most of the. This one is Kvasir. Kvasir. Yeah, Kvasir. The K is still is pronounced. No, Kvasir. It does something to the V. It aspirates the V. Njord.
Nar.
What? Njord. Asser. And here's one no one here can pronounce properly, including myself. This is actually a Russian name, and it's supposed to be pronounced something like Wadim. Wadim. Yeah.
Alright, so we're gonna go
From host name. So anyway, I'll get back to the forward agent. So if you decide that you want to do some things in your config file and you want to use the forward agent option, I really recommend using it on machines that you trust because it makes life a lot easier. So if I need to SSH into a server, like Stjofen, and then I need to do a git pull on something, which I can actually just do a git pull because my home directory is a git repo. This would fail if I wasn't forwarding the agent to Stjofen, and I'd have to have another key on the server, so then I'd have to enter that for every time I do a pull, every time I do a push for git. I would have to do it anytime I wanted to go from a tertiary machine. So the convenience of it's good, but you have to weigh the convenience against the fact that whoever has root on this machine can intercept your connections.
So in order to go from your local host to host 1, and then to host 2, using SSH public key authentication, and use the SSH forwarding agent, host 1 will have to know the public key on your local host. And host 2 will have to know the same public key as on your
Yeah, well, I'll actually back up for a bit about how you should do a good way of doing key management, relatively sane way of doing key management, at least I think. So you should have a private key for each device that you use, not for each service. I don't really care if there's some hypothetical attack that allows you to reverse a public key to a private key. If someone's done that, that's amazing, and we have really huge security problems in general. So what you care about is revocation. If you steal my laptop, you're going to have to get into my machines really quickly, because the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to disable its public key on all of my machines and on GitHub and Bitbucket, because I'm using that now too. And I actually have a list of where my keys are, because they don't need to be in every location necessarily. So what you have to be thinking about when you do one private key per machine is which machine has access to which machine. It's a simple one-to-one mapping. If you do the thing where you have like multiple private keys, I have the private key, I have my 5 private keys on this one machine, then you get into problems where if your laptop is compromised or your phone is compromised, assuming you have SSH on your phone, then you have 5 keys that you have to remove from the same number of locations. And it is just, in this case with SSH, it is just as simple as removing a line from a file, but it's still better to have that one-to-one mapping between this machine has access to what.
Question for you. So when you say don't turn on forward agent to a system where you don't trust root, the difference between that and actually having the key file on that remote system where you don't trust root is that forward agent would send it unencrypted by your passphrase. Is that what you're saying?
And if you're thinking about that, if you don't trust root, even if you have a key file there, root can still get it out of memory.
Yeah.
You can just attach, if you do, GDB can do the thing where you attach to a running process. If you're root, you can just.
So really, you just don't want to SSH from a machine where you don't trust root on that machine.
Yeah.
At all.
And Chuck?
What if you have the key, like a smart card or a key seal or something?
That's still, the unencrypted one is still going to have to be presented over the SSH agent.
Okay.
So,
Hopefully you might be safe.
yeah. Now there is another point. If you are using a machine you don't trust and you really don't trust the person, that is the case where you use multiple private keys. But that still opens you up to the more complexity management. You can't simplify crypto too much or you break things, but if you make it ridiculously complicated, you just force people to do unsecure things all the time. Which is why my GPG key currently is expired.
Well,
I can unexpire it at any time.
one thing though, if you don't trust root, then you already have larger problems, then
Yeah.
yeah, because so nobody can easily backdoor.
They could do anything. I mean, you could do practically anything.
Well, couldn't they also theoretically do reverse SSH tunnels?
Yep, they can do reverse SSH. If you actually worry about connectivity, I don't know if you were here, Mick, when I was proudly presenting my public IPv6 address at the top of the screen. So I don't necessarily care about that, but tunneling is did I say that was 5? Tunneling is probably topic 5, feature 5. Before I do that, I'll check for time. Going a little bit over, but if no one's particularly fussed, I'll continue with a few more bullet points that I have. But what we've gone over is how you can use the SSH config file to alias host names, which is I use for a couple of things. So I have short aliases to get into them, as you've been seeing. I also use it to manage my known host files. I split them into one that gets written to every time I SSH and agree to add a key. Another one which I add to seldom that is version controlled with my home directory, so that on any machine that I use the same configs on, I'll know if it's been compromised, hopefully. Control master, which tunnels everything over a single SSH connection and allows you to persist that tunnel even when you close out of the last interactive session you have with it. Port forwarding we'll get to, I think, now. So I'll actually change the order by writing the feature first. And first we're going to do local forwards. There's actually actually four types of forwarding. We'll do local forwards first.
It took me a year to figure out the difference between local and hub forwarding.
Well, one's the inverse of the other.
Yeah, but which one's which?
Local is the one that listens on your local machine.
Right, I understand that.
Yeah, I know. I understand. And sometimes the syntax of the arguments for it gets confusing. So I think that I don't do the shared thing to local. Let's find out. Yeah, apparently I do. I control persist that. So that was actually important to do because I would have had a persistent connection on another machine. There we go. Everything's all nicely closed down.
Oh, you
But-
have enough boxes to make this fun.
What?
You have enough boxes to make this fun for time.
Yeah, I do, actually. Well, can I get to Sin right now? Sin's far away. Let's see if we can get to Sin. So, by the way, Sin is also a Norse god. I forget what I think it's female, and I forget what their thing is. Oh, actually, this is great. Everyone in the room will love it. Actually, if you know, who in here knows something about TCP? Okay, fairly good. And you know that Sin is a type of packet for TCP, right? Mm-hmm. You'll love this. The Norse god Sin is the goddess of refusal.
Yes.
Yeah. So I thought it's really funny. So yeah, I can log into there, so that's good. I last logged in there from suncoastlog.org. I think I'm doing control persist for that. Oh no, I'm not. I'm not persist now. That's good to know. So I want to be able to get to the SLUG site. No, I want to be able to I can use SSH. I'll use HTTP. So I want to listen on localhost. And every time on 2020, and every time I get a connection from there, 8080. And every time I get a connection from there, connect to port 80 on Hardison.net. Should be a blank page. And I'm gonna, so that's what I'm doing locally. Which host this actually ends up tunneling through is my choice. So I will tunnel through Sin. This Sin is in Spain, so there's going to be some latency involved in this, but it should still work. So localhost 8080, and it should be some. I think it's a blank Nginx page. And can make it more interesting. Tilde Dylan. What do I have? What publicly accessible file do I have on Motion? La 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 la.
Resume. Version.
Yeah.
Version.
Oh, wedding of Mark and Tommy. This was a sign that I saw in Tennessee that I thought was kind of funny. Whoops. The wedding of Mark and Tommy. Oh, and also, you can tell probably I'm telling you this over Spain. So yes, it actually does kind of look like they wrote Tammy, but from a distance, when I took the picture, I thought I was in Tennessee seeing the wedding of Mark and Tommy. And chainsaw bears.
On Tiger Circle,
Yeah, you could look these people up if you wanted to.
on a blind bend curve.
Yep. Pretty good detail there. So I am pretty certain that I'm not running a web server with this content locally. So this is all connecting through the SYN server. Now, I'm not doing control persist. I'll show you now, going backtrack, why control persist is the useful option. If I close this shell, it just hangs. Can anyone figure out why it's just hanging?
Probably your HTTP
Waiting for a
connection.
close to those phones?
No, the HTTP connection is closed, but the tunnel to the HTTP connection is open. Now, if I do Control C here, it will kill it. And if I refresh, it's gone. So the reason you want to do that with, Control persist, yes, is now, when I refresh, the connection's back. And if I disconnect, I get my shell back. Yay, because it's just running. So it's, if I type PS, it's not there, but I can look for
Show
it.
the dash F and dash N options for having one off, so you don't log into it. Dash F and dash N.
Mm-hmm. N is, what is N?
No execute.
Oh yeah, no execute. So yeah, if you just want to do, and F require set as background as before. Yep. So if you wanted to do that, well, first let me close it. So if you wanted to close it, I have to go back.
I'll jump through a couple, you can nest those tunnels.
Yeah. So let me exit it first, and then I'll do Luke's options. So also, if I just want to do this and I didn't want it to stay around. Actually, I don't need control persist at this point.
Doesn't F imply N?
I don't think so.
It's a main page.
So F implies N. So that
Or
seems
do I
like.
know?
Let's find out.
That, so nice.
Yeah, wait, but does N imply F? So it,
Alright, then it was the other one.
yep. So now it's running. Now I didn't use control persist. So here's an interesting, I think, can I close that connection now? I can't close that connection.
But you have to foreground it.
Yep. Well, it's gone now. I have to, let's see, I can find its PID.
Using capital.
So that's Lofen. Does anyone see it?
No.
Did it actually, it didn't run. I think you need NNF. Ah. So anyway, if you're using N, I think it's really wise to set control persist because it gives you a way of terminating the connection. Spot the error.
And lowercase n is different from capital N.
Mhm.
N is redirect standard input, that's null. And capital N is the
Oh, right.
no execute.
I had both cases wrong on that, didn't I? All right, so the reason that I'm doing this is it will not background, right? So if you do this and you control C, the tunnel's down. If I do F, does that mean it backgrounds?
Yeah.
Just put it in there.
So, but if I did this and I didn't do control persist, how would I kill this process? I'd have to find the PID.
Yeah.
So, but if you use control persist, you can just, and you would also have to specify control master if that wasn't in your config file. You could then, I can then just do, I can close it at any time. Let's verify that it's open. Yep, it's open. And now,
Often have several tunnels open, and I can just see what ports they're forwarding remote
Mhm.
local to, and get the PID for something when it closed down, and just kill it that way.
what do you mean?
I have several tunnels running.
Mhm.
They just kill the PIDs, 15.
Yeah, you can, that O command also supports a forwarding, and you can do an anti-forwarding as well, so you can close it. And I'm sure there's GUIs for that if you needed it. Is that what you're talking about? No. But anyway, so yeah, we can launch this in the background. I'm going to launch it through a different server that's a little bit faster. So for the Struf, and now I have 8080 on a local forward, and it's working. Notice that that's faster, hopefully. Although the Shift F5 it actually requested again, rather than just doing a header. Yeah. Okay, so if I do this again, it will not open a new connection, but I can add a new port forwarding, right? Is that how it's going to work? So let's say that. I know it's not actually. For those who are following wrong, so I just SSH'd in, and it didn't open a new shell, and didn't do any of that. So 81 should now be forwarding to the same thing, right? Yep. But if I didn't want to use the N and F options, what I actually normally do for this is you do -O forward, and you don't have to specify a command in this case either. We'll do 82. And 82. But we decided that now I've got to look at the man page, because I forget this, because I don't actually have to unforward all that often. There was a way of undoing a local forward. What was it? Did anyone spot it when I did it? Cancel forwardings. So I think cancel doesn't cancel all forwardings. It cancels the ones that you specified. Let's find that out. Nope, it cancels all the ones that you don't specify. Or not.
There's not 82.
You're at 82.
What?
You're taking 82 when you're trusting 81, right?
Yeah, but I commented that out actually. Should have canceled all forwardings. Let's test it.
It's just canceled, right?
It's still there. I think that this tunnel is not. I think the process isn't set up right.
So you can do X and you kill the master.
Yeah, but there is. I know cancel this that destroys a single tunnel, because I had to re-establish a tunnel or change the tunnel I was on because I wanted to forward it to something else. So I'm going to try this on Loafman, which I know is configured right because I've done it there.
Oh, and I haven't actually used this, but Sean was using it, and I thought it was pretty interesting. There's some sort of like command mode that you can go into.
Yeah.
SSH.
Yeah, you can't.